Welcome to Impact at Work, a special VMJ pod series with Jo Vohland and me, David Macciocca. Each week we explore how talent leaders are defining the future of work, not by speed or output, but by the real difference they make in creating meaningful impact in the workplace.
Welcome to the VMJ pod. In this series, we are talking about the impact at work. I'm David Macciocca.
And I'm Jo Vohland. And joining us today, we have Athanasia Corso. Athanasia is the head of talent at Network Insurance House. Thanks for coming into the studio.
Thank you for having me.
Now, Athanasia, David and I have been speaking to people all through this series about the different ways to make impact at work. And having known you for a little while now and know what you're really good at, you're always really good at coming back to where you fit into the picture, no matter what is happening, no matter the transformation or what's going on. You are very good at anchoring back into the value in which you bring. And that's pretty amazing in the world of having impact at work. So for all the recruiters out there, all the talent leaders that are feeling a little bit disempowered and a little bit unsure in this weird and wonderful world that we're living in, can you share, how is it that you can stay so anchored in what you bring to the table?
I think you have a lot more power than you know. And I think if you know that you have a lot more power than you know, you can find it somewhere. I think if you align company objectives and you align your own value proposition, then there is somewhere and something that, you can have impact with, is what I would say to that.
And what about the people that are feeling a little stuck or sidelined? Like, what's the one question they can ask themselves so they can kind of get back to what's really important and get back to thinking, how can I link myself to what, this transformation that's happening that might have rocked them a little bit?
Yeah, I'd work out why you're doing this. Like, work out why you're in the role that you are, whether that is because you are pursuing budgets or high volume or pace or strategy or whatever kind of outcome it is that you're there for, or whatever it fulfills in you, then work that out, and then you're going to find your path really, really easily. I think if you're trying to run someone else's race or cover all lanes or do things that aren't organic and authentic to yourself, then it's going to be really hard to get yourself back in the game if you're feeling sidelined.
Some people do feel in work that they are on a hamster wheel. What do you say to those people?
Well, why? Like, you just kind of start with why and then just keep working through it. If you're on a hamster wheel, there could be a million different reasons for that. It could be because it's no longer stimulating for you. It could be because you don't have influence on the work that you're doing. It could be because you can't see the impact that you're having in what you're doing. But there's going to be a hamster wheel version of any role that you're in if you don't understand why you're doing it or why it's feeling, why you're feeling trapped in it.
So it's coming back to, no matter what the environment is, you're sort of putting some, well, I guess it's not pressure, because if you're bringing it back to your own accountability, you're actually giving yourself power.
Yep. 100%. If you own it, then you can change it. If you hand that over to it being, a strategy that you don't believe in, or a culture that you're not enjoying, or a workplace that isn't, you can blame all the external factors that you like, but at the end of the day, you are there to have an impact, whatever that is. And if you understand where you fit into it, you can smash it out of the park, whatever it is. I'll say all the time, I can do whatever job you want. We can do the job. Let's just make it something that is a win-win for both the individual doing it and the business should be benefiting from it. But yeah, it should be an exchange. You shouldn't feel trapped.
How important is communication from leadership?
Look, I think there's all the statistics and all the research and all the studies will tell you how important it is, and I think that's undeniable. I think the reality is that some communication isn't great and some communication can be great but not your style, so you're not going to receive it great, right? Like, I think we can blame all the stats and the businesses that might not be delivering according to the studies and the, Gallup research and the, Deloitte statistics. But I think at the end of the day, if we're blaming all these external factors, communication is very important. But if you're not getting what you need, then it's also the responsibility sits on the individual who's seeking more clarity or direction or guidance to also communicate that effectively. And I think leadership comes in all forms and at all layers in the hierarchy. And when we're feeling disempowered or we're feeling sidelined or we're feeling unclear, then take some of that back and go, okay, let's empower myself. Let's get back into things and off the sideline, and let's use the communication we wish we had and start delivering it ourselves.
I think some of the disappointment that some people that I've noticed can feel is they are so attached to a particular outcome.
Mm-hmm.
They're so attached to a project that they're working on, right? And the thing that I notice about you is that you, whilst you do work on those projects and you do work on transformations, and you just kind of accept that there's a natural state of constant change.
Yep.
And so, how did you arrive at that point where you can kind of say, okay, well, the direction's changing, so I can not be so emotionally distressed about that and continue to find my value in whatever future is being laid out in front of me?
Probably childhood dysfunction. I think the reality, things do change, and you're not, everyone's got a boss. Somebody's going to be asking you to change direction, and somebody's asked them to do the same thing. And if we keep projecting our disappointment on the person next on the totem pole or in the production line, I think it's futile, and I think it's a waste of energy, and I think it doesn't get outcomes, and I think it's unfulfilling, and ultimately everyone misses out on the success. I think we don't always know what are driving the need for change, and we don't know what's behind that. And I think to hang out in the disappointment of it is vain, and I think it's futile, and I think it's destructive. And I think that has a ripple effect. And if you truly believe in what you do and you love what you do and you're convicted by the fact that you're there to help people, make change, have a difference in the world, all of those things, then you need to also look a bit bigger and sort of maybe step outside of yourself and know that the person who's changed your direction has probably had a 10 times multiple effect of that, and you're just part of that. Instead of assuming that the thing you're working on is the most important thing to everyone, because it's not. It's important to you, but it might need to shift, and I think that's okay for it to, who knows, by being a little bit more open-minded about it or accepting of it or collaborative with it and curious about it, it might actually be a better outcome, and it might take you somewhere better than, where you thought you were heading on project version number 1.
Yeah, and it goes both ways, doesn't it? Like the person might have changed and not rolled with the actual company who's going in that straight line, because people are different. I'm very
the
different
duality of a person might change their mind versus an organisation might. Interesting. And so I think, from a career perspective, my take is that nobody is going to care more about your career than you.
Yep.
Right? So you can have helpers, you can have career sponsors, you can have coaches, you can have, but really ultimately you're the one in the driver's seat.
Yep.
But some people really struggle to see that, understand it, but you tend to always just kind of go, I'm the one in the driver's seat of my own career. I'm not handing over that power or control to somebody else. I mean, is that just innate in you? Is that something that's always been there?
No, that's absolutely learnt. There are plenty of roles that I thought, I don't even know where I'm heading with this. Or there has been a role where I thought this is literally going to be the death of me. Like I handed all my power over and wasn't seeing my kids, I didn't even know myself, let alone, there was just such a disconnect between personal empowerment and fulfillment in work and knowing where my identity fell in all of that. So I don't think it's a magic there's no magic trick to it. I think there's learnings in it, and I think maybe sometimes people are pushed to a limit where they draw a line, and I absolutely did, where I said I will never ever be at the mercy of, I said even earlier today, we are lucky in our jobs and we don't cure cancer and we don't save lives. We change lives, but we don't save them, and we get to go home at the end of the day and use whatever went wrong as a learning instead of, the most dire thing that's ever happened. It isn't. We take pride in what we do, but we're not we change lives, but we don't save them. So it's okay to get it wrong or to learn or backtrack or sidestep or whatever it is. So no, it's not innate. There are some people who do it incredibly well.
So you had your epiphany, you had your aha moment, and it sounded like, I bet every single person, has experienced this before, but sometimes when you give a little too much of yourself and that is not then rewarded in return, right?
Well,
and
you realise you shouldn't, and you take it back again. I take sort of the accountability of that back. Nobody asked me to do that. I did it, and I, crossed over the boundary in my life of what was, I suppose, too much, and nobody owed me more than my salary in that exchange, right? I was doing my job and I was getting paid to do it, but I gave more than I probably had to give, and I sort of went, okay, well, this is where I need to have different boundaries or clarity on what I want, and that's probably where I come back to that clarity, because when you have that, I think the sky's the limit. I think you can be incredibly fulfilled and impactful, and I was absolutely not impactful in that role. I can assure you. Yeah.
What were a few of the signs that you felt like looking back now that you can clearly see that you weren't that happy or in tune?
There were plenty of signs.
Which were the obvious ones that you ignored?
Oh, look, obvious ones were values-based stuff.
Okay.
And some people will be motivated by different things. Some people it will be a work flexibility requirement or a pay, a remuneration to go with the role. It could be an elevation or a status thing. Values is really important to me. It's probably the one thing that I've sort of I think I've crossed a boundary here on values that I thought I'd uphold, that I stayed quiet on. And for me, that was an absolute, I would never do that again. That's for sure. Yep, that was definitely one.
It's amazing the learnings that you accumulate along the way. It sounds like it has led you to arrive at a certain point that I think clarity is super important, because we have just been this, whether it was the GFC or COVID or now there's AI transformation upon us, there's a lot of people feeling like, what does the future look like? Who knows? But as human beings, I think we're driven to require a sense of security and a sense of clarity.
Yep.
So being able to find that. So your advice for people is to bring it back to yourself, to know what it is that you offer, not be so attached to transformation, 3.0 when we're moving to 4.B, and just keep rolling with it and keep finding the clarity of, how do I fit into that picture? What do I have to offer or to add to this?
Yeah, definitely. I think all of those things are true, 100%. I also think be generous and curious. You add generosity and curiosity to what you do, and you're just you're always one up, right? You're always giving more than you thought you had, or you're always learning more than you had. I don't think anyone needs to be the smartest person in the room. You don't have to, be the most experienced or accomplished individual to be generous with what you have. And I think, as well as having that clarity and I think empowering yourself with knowing that you've got plenty to bring and you've got way more influence than you think you have, and then balancing that with curiosity and with generosity, I think is really powerful and super impactful. And I think people pick up from that and will reciprocate it very naturally.
This episode is brought to you by Video My Job, your go-to platform for creating branded employee videos at scale with zero editing. If you're burning time and budget producing talent content, there is a better way. Book a demo at Video My Job to see how teams like yours are creating hundreds of employee videos without editing a single thing.
You've used the word exchange a couple of
Yep.
times.
Yep.
So do you see work as a value exchange?
Completely. Yeah, completely. It's interesting because I don't think I'm detached from my work. I think work is more of my identity than I'd like to admit that it is. I think I love it and very immersed in it. But it is an exchange, and I think that at the end of the day, we are there to fulfill a purpose, and we are also there to take something from that, whatever that is. For some people, it's going to be a paycheck. For some people, it's going to be occupying their minds. For other people, it's going to be more of their identity and some social and cultural inputs into their lives. But there is an exchange, and there needs to be an exchange because it's how the world works, right back to barter days. You know, there's an exchange in place, and there's nothing wrong with that. You just work out what your currency is, and you find it and drive it, and then in exchange, work out what the objectives and the expectation is of wherever you're at, so you can reciprocate it, and everyone feels like they're getting a win-win out of it.
Can you see yourself being in talent acquisition, the whatever day it is you choose to retire many, many years, many decades from now? Can you see yourself still being in talent? On
one level or another, yes. I am so excited by business in general and understanding how you can bring talent into commercial outcomes. There is nothing more exciting than seeing, success for an individual that multiplies into success for an organisation. So talent's a brilliant way of I think both sides of my brain get a little bit of a buzz out of that because it's commercial outcomes with people as a priority. And then building that, it's the building blocks of that. So however that lands, I don't know. I was talking to somebody else. Somebody was valuing my car and they were asking me what I did. And I got so excited talking about what I do because it was just, I get to do really cool stuff and I get to do it every single day, and I get to do it both on an individual level, building capability and understanding that capability on a molecular level. And then I also get to do that, at the corporate level as well, which is incredibly fun and stimulating. And so I don't know exactly where I land. I would like to be, absolutely still dabbling in both. Recruitment is part of that, but talent more broadly is probably what is more exciting. Yeah.
And so from that talent perspective, there's a lot of talent acquisition leaders that are reshaping their roles up and out and moving into new areas. Some are taking on workforce planning, other are taking on talent management. Some are kind of dabbling in the AI space and wanting to get onto working parties. From an organisational perspective, all those kind of things are needed. There's lots of different ways to slice and dice. I mean, what's next for you, do you think?
I'd love to be driving some of this at an executive level. I think, is that what you mean with your question?
Yeah.
Do you think you're close though? Because if you're talking about business outcomes and attracting talent, sounds like you're pretty close.
I'm incredibly fortunate, and I get to be having these conversations regularly. Incredibly fortunate, and the way that our business is structured, it's definitely allows for that. I think talent absolutely belongs there in the first place, and I think that if we wait for someone to let you in, you're just going to stand at the door continuously. I think ask questions and be curious and be generous. It's not a segmented business. Isn't segmented. It sometimes turns out that way depending on size or scale or complexity, but it's all for the same outcome. There's just
What impact do you think it would make if you were able to lean a little bit more at the executive level?
It's really exciting. I think it's incredibly exciting. I think we start talking about the scalability of what we do. We talk about the longevity of some of the activity and whether or not it is a primary focus just from a task, on a task level or on a strategic level. But the reality is I feel like I'm doing it. You know, I'm kind of thinking about this answer, but I feel like I am, and we really do that as a business and an organisation. We are part of a bigger group, and you know, to do that en masse, the thought of that is pretty fun. And I just think, oh, wouldn't it be cool if there was maybe some standardisation or some uniformity and consistency. I think I don't look at it business-wise. You know, that for me, even that's a bit small. I look at that industry-wise, or I look at it on more of a universal level. If this could be done on this scale and at this level with this level of strategy, then where does that lead businesses more broadly? That is really exciting. Like, that's probably visionary, more visionary for me, because the truth is I am having these conversations.
Well, because you
frequently.
work in like a niche space, right? So when you're working in insurance, you're talking about an entire group of trained professionals within the Australian community. So any kind of changes or impacts that you make in your organisation can obviously have a ripple effect to how other insurance organisations and the broader insurance community actually operate.
Yeah, definitely. I think industry-wide it's so replicable. I think it is scalable, and I think it is relevant. But I have recently advertised for a recruiter in my team, and I'm having a look at applications, and I'm speaking with candidates, and I look at how recruitment is done across businesses more broadly, and just understanding the mechanics of it. And I think, oh God, wouldn't it be great if, you know, you were, for example, introduced to the recruitment process before the requisition was approved, right? Like, you've got teams of recruiters, and this isn't talent more broadly, this is going, you know, narrowing it down into TA. But wouldn't it be awesome if more recruiters were across what roles are coming up, instead of just getting that approval and now starting to kick the role off and the life cycle of where they fit into things
So
there.
more connected to demand planning and workforce planning.
And even beyond that, just business outlook, like what's going on in the teams next to you. You're probably 3 rows down, and the first you hear about it is in your inbox. So yes, I think there's a lot that can be done in that space, and that's not assuming nobody's doing it right. I think there's lots of ways of doing it and lots of great ways of doing it. But yeah, I think there's some uplift there that would be amazing.
Well, no wonder you feel so connected to and optimistic about new opportunities and your value and what you can bring to that, because your eye is on the horizon. You know, it's not in the next 3 months of what's on my desk. It's industry wide. It's future focused. It's, the broader organisational outcomes, not just talent outcomes.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that's why we're doing it. You know, we're not doing it in isolation with whatever else is going on. Any part of our role should be connected with the broader output. It should be about expanding industry capability, or expanding, optimizing efficiencies, or driving commercial outcomes, or, it's not just this island of people hanging out with people to find a title and a desk for one another. It's
I think it's important that you
bigger.
know who you're talking to at an executive level, like what's their persona. How do you get through to that person so that you can elevate the conversation?
You just find their currency.
Find their
Find
currency.
their currency.
You understand what their drivers are. At the end of the
Yeah.
day, you could both
What's
be
important
sitting
to
on the
them.
same executive team and have 2 completely different priorities. You could be in conflict. You could be in cahoots. You could be. It doesn't matter. It's okay. I think that's the other thing, is being okay with it. It is completely okay to be confused about maybe what 2 different people or a complete board or an executive team are looking for. But if you go in with that curiosity. I might be an expert in what I do, but I respect that you are too. And the only way we're going to work together is by sharing that expertise. And the only way you're going to want to do that with me is if I am interested in what you're bringing to the table and am generous with what I bring for you, with you in mind. At the end of the day, if I do it for me, then it's in vain and it's wasted.
Yeah,
And
no, I think that's really good advice.
Curiosity and generosity. So 2 major factors that people and talent can dive into and bring to the table and create better relationships and better outcomes. I love it. That's so valuable.
Thank you. We're trained to be judgmental. We just are.
Yeah,
like we're
and
trained
particularly
to
as
be
recruiters,
judgmental,
yeah.
and we pride ourselves on our quick judgment. Our, that's supposed to be a strength, and it is a strength. But overplayed, you miss out on, I think, some of the other stuff.
I love it. An overplayed strength. We had a session with Eva Brooks on strength-based profiling, and we touched on strengths and overplayed strengths as well, didn't we?
We did. We did. It was a lot of fun.
I love how full circle that is. That was our first.
What's your strengths?
Oh, there's plenty of them.
Connector.
So many of them.
Connector. Are you a wooer?
We haven't got time for me to list all of my strengths. No. Connector, relationship developer. There was a few. David, you had an unrealized strength.
No,
so
it was very realised. I thought
No,
the strength could
your
be
farming.
my farming. Yeah, that was another one.
Agriculture.
Yeah.
And it was interesting that came up, because it's not that it was a weakness. It was like, this is a strength, but you aren't necessarily, capitalising and using it.
Yeah, it was a fascinating exercise,
and it
wasn't
turns
it?
out that you actually do love
I could
growing food, and you're really. He's jealous of. Is it your brother-in-law who's your brother?
Yeah.
Who's bought a farm and growing stuff, and he's.
You can go there anytime.
Oh, I can.
Yeah.
I know. I'm like, I know I am this person.
He wants to get his fingers in the dirt.
Do it.
Yeah.
Do it.
Yeah.
It's very good.
We learnt a lot.
Yeah, good. Good. What kind of strengths profile was it?
It was called Strength.
It was called Strengths Profiler by Capfinity. Yeah.
Oh, Capfinity. Yes, great.
Yeah.
Excellent.
It was a good one.
Fun.
So too good. Well, thank you so much for coming
Thank
into the
you.
studio. Thanks for chatting with us today. I hope everyone tuning in got a lot from that, with generosity and curiosity, and taking your career and your outcomes back into your own hands.
Definitely.
Love it.
Thanks. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Anytime.